TV47 Weekend Edition to more stories. And a photographer, Jackton Odhiambo, is currently serving 50 years in prison for murdering his housemate, friend and LGBTQ activist Edwin Kiprotich Kipruto, popularly known as Edwin Chiloba. Now, Odhiambo had been living with Chiloba in the outskirts of Eldoret City before his murder on the 31st of December 2022. But just how was Chiloba killed and why? Tonight, TV47's Samira Mohammed tried to answer some of the questions in the killing of Chiloba, whose body was found in a metallic box.
January 2023. Kenyans were ushering the new year 2023. 3rd of January was just like any other ordinary day for many Kenyans. But for the family of LGBTQ activist Edwin Kipto alias Chiloba, it was no ordinary day. They woke up to the discovery of the body of the 25-year-old activist, decomposing and dumped in a metallic box along the busy Kipkenyo-Kaptianga Road in Kapseret Sub-County, just 10 kilometers from Eldoret Town.
Hii mambo ya kifo yake imetutua sana. Tumeipata kwa social media, hatukujua.
We've seen him when he's just in a pathetic state. Aliumiswa sana, and I just wonder those human beings if they were human.
But how was Chiloba killed? Why was he killed? In this story, we try to answer some of these questions. My name is Samira Mohammed. Meet Jackton Odhiambo. Jackton, then 24-year-old, was arrested for the murder of Edwin.
I'm a pure straight person that never indulged myself in any sexual act with my family.
Be fair for us. Kwa sababu kuna mtu anaweza taka mtoto wake akue hivyo. Just to be fair, atujue mambo na mtoto wetu amewawa. Tunataka tu justice, nothing more.
2 years later, Odhiambo was sentenced to 50 years in prison for murdering his housemate Chiloba.
Between the death penalty and the life sentence, which we are seeking to agree with the apex court of the land of what is the definition of life sentence in Kenya. The middle ground for me, Jackson, for you, is to serve a custodial sentence of 50 years imprisonment, taking into account that you have been in demand custody.
The court, through Justice Ruben Nyakundi, said the long sentence was based on the diabolical manner of the killing. The prosecution presented 22 witnesses before the landmark ruling in Eldoret. So why was Chiloba killed? Odhiambo, who was Chiloba's best friend and roommate, will take us through the last moments of the deceased. Chiloba and his friend Odhiambo walks into a club in Eldoret Town to enjoy the Ear Cruise overnight.
We are heading to Tamasha Lounge. So we just arrived at Tamasha Lounge. This is the club where we partied. On the 31st, this is where we crossed over the year 2023. So we decided to come here and cross the year here with a few friends of mine. We later left this club with Dennis Ochieng and Patricia Nyambura. I took a cab and we drove off to the apartment.
They would later leave the club with their friends identified as Dennis Ochieng and his girlfriend Patricia Nyambura.
So we are heading out to the apartment where we spent the rest of the night. So we just arrived at where we dropped Patricia and her boyfriend Dennis. This is the location, Canaan B. This is where we dropped them as we turned the car around and we went to our apartment ahead. We're just about to enter our apartment where we used to stay with the deceased. And this is the way to the apartment.
This is where the two were living together, at the Noble Breeze apartment in the outskirts of Eldoret City. When they got into the house, Edwin rested in the chair and Jackton proceeded to the bedroom.
We got here, I took the key off his pockets and I opened the door. He first entered, then I was left behind to lock the door. He walked straight, put the key, the table was around somewhere here, one table was around somewhere here. I dropped the key here and he came back and he dragged himself to the chair. The chair was sitting somewhere around here. This is where the chair was. The head of the chair was this side, and the wall unit was here. This is where the TV used to be. So the wall unit was here. And after he sat on the chair, I laid him down to rest and proceeded to the bedroom. I took toothpaste was in the wardrobe. I took out the duvet and went back and covered him with the duvet. Yes. As I took the duvet and covered him, there was a carpet here. It was a sitting room carpet, one whole table here, the wall unit, and this was the chair. So after covering him, I went out and took a mattress, the small mattress. I placed it next to the seat where he was sleeping. I placed it here, and I went and took a pair of blankets for myself. So I laid the mattress flat, and I also put myself down to rest. That was around 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. Yes. So after a while, I didn't have sleep. I wasn't sleeping since there was a lot of music. There was a lot of music down the stairs. So I struggled finding sleep. I just sat and went through his phone, just checking the time. I wasn't able to unlock it. I just pressed the home button and see what time it was. I tried my best to find sleep, but I couldn't, so I just closed my eyes and tried to sleep. After some few minutes to around 5 or 6, that is when he was struggling to wake up since the liquor was downing on him. He was sobering up. And that is when he started ranting about the previous night, where I met with my exes at the club, and then he was ranting about all that, angry with a tone of rage. That is when he woke up, sitting, the legs were still on the chair, so he dropped his bed. He reached out on the wall unit that was around here. He reached for the cable. There was not much light in the house since our token was out. We were using the security light here. So I was able to see my way around the kitchen and the washroom, but I couldn't see my way through the wall unit since the curtain was heavy.
The confrontation did not end there. Odhiambo says the deceased reached out for a cable and tried to strangle him, tied the cable around the neck as he was still ranting on why his friend wanted to leave him in this house.
He still ranted about why I'm to shift from this house and go live with my wife and kid and leave him alone. So he continued strangling, and I took it as a joke. I felt like he was just doing it for some time, then he could stop, but he didn't. That is when I reached out, since I was struggling to breathe. I reached out for the cable and tried to secure my breath. I reached out with my left hand. I tried, it couldn't break. Then I reached out with my right hand. I tried, then it taut. The cable taut. That is when he came closer to me. And and I applied my right hand to close his face and mouth. That is when for like 3 to 4 minutes, while I was pressing my hand against his nose and mouth, that is when he lost consciousness, and that is when he started convulsing and shaking. I stood up to reach for breath since I was still coming from the choking. I stood from somewhere here. I stood, I breathed a little bit. I thought he was pretending to shake because he is used to dramatizing after we have an argument or something. Or he shook and lay down to rest. I assumed he was tired or something, or he was just acting up from the alcohol, and he'd wake up later. I covered him with the duvet and went back to sleep in the mattress. That is when I woke up at around 8 in the morning, 8 a.m., around 8:30 p.m. I woke up, I tried to wake him up, but he didn't wake up, so I assumed he's still pretending. I walked out and went to Patricia's place. After coming out of the Patricia's place, I asked them if they found my phone, because I'd lost my phone the previous night. They told me they didn't see it. I came back thinking that he had woken up. I tried to shake him, checked his pulse, and that is when it hit me that he's dead.
Odhiambo then left the house to go look for his phone, only to come back and realize his friend and roommate was still in the same position he left him.
I just realized that, it's past 40 to 1 hour. He's not waking up and he's still in the same position I left him when I went to Patricia's place. So I reached out for his phone and went out. I thought for a minute. I came back. That's when I used his fingerprint to open the mobile phone and tried to Google what to do next, because I didn't know what to do. I just searched what to do when someone dies accidentally in your house. I searched on Google and it brought me results from different states and how the acts of law will fall against me. None of them made me feel like I should go and report, because the scene of the crime is all on me and I would be the main suspect and it would be considered as murder. So I didn't know what to do. I came back, I changed, and I went to my home place.
Odhiambo says after realizing his friend was still in the same position, he decided to leave.
After I left on the first morning, I left and I went to my parents' house. I stayed there the whole day. I slept, I changed, and then I came back to town. I didn't want any company that day because I was still traumatized on the acts of the previous day. I went to a certain club called The Back. That is where I spent half of my night. I drank and then a couple of friends came by. We drove off and I booked a house at Langas. That is where I spent the entire first night.
It is this time that Odhiambo started cooking a cover-up story.
So I started thinking of a way of coming up with a story to cover up all of the acts that happened. So that is when I started looking for my alibis and people who would just be there to tell the story. That is when I called my brother and asked him if he knows of a person who has a car that I can hire for that day. He sent me Mike's number, the taxi driver, and I called the taxi driver. He told me the car is available. I can find it at around 9 p.m. in the evening. We agreed on the meeting point. I went and took the car, and the second night at 9 p.m. I drove to my parents' home. That is where the car spent the night, and I also spent the night there. So waking up in the morning of 3rd, I woke up very early in the morning because I needed to take care of the body since we were to shift before 5th. I came with the car to town. I looked for a way of disposing the body, that's when I figured that I can buy something to carry the body. And that is when I went to town. I randomly bought a metallic box, a green in color, dark green in color. I packed it in the boot of the car. I drove off. I dropped the box in the house, and then I blindly dropped the body on the box. I stuffed it with a duvet, the duvet that he was covered with on the 31st night, and I added in some clothes to make a story of kidnapping. I dropped in some towel and random clothes. I later tied his mouth with jeans, and I stuffed in his mouth 2 pairs of clean socks from the wardrobe. I closed the box without locking it, and then I drove back to my parents' home. That is where I met my cousin, and I asked him if he knows of a friend who can help me shift the remaining stuff from the house where I'm supposed to shift from. That is where he said he'll look for someone. I went and picked Emmanuel Omondi and my cousin Ramsey Chebwao. We drove from home back to the apartment. That is when they tried to carry the box themselves, but Ramsey was too tiny and the box was too heavy for him to carry. I helped carry it, me and Emmanuel. We stuffed the box out of the house. Me and Ramsey, we came out and we balanced the box through the stairs. We came down the stairs with the box. Came down, and we rest somewhere here. This is where the box was too heavy for both of us. I asked him to rest a little bit so that we could continue. So we rest for a minute, and then we went out. The box, and yes, we went to the house, to the car. So we walked with the box. We got here. We realized that the small gate, we couldn't pass the box straight. So we turned the box on the sideways so that it could fit the small gate. We dragged it out and we rested it here for a minute since the car was parked facing the other side. And we opened the boot. We helped put the box in the car. So we lifted up the box and dragged it in the boot, which was already open. I went to the other side of the door. I tried and pulled it in since it was very long. Then we locked the boot and we sat, 3 of us in the front. Me, I was on the driver's seat. Ramsey on the co-driver's seat, and then Manu squeezed with Ramsey on the co-driver's seat. And we locked and we drove off to our parents' home. I didn't have my driving license, and I didn't want to use the main road because it goes through CBD. We used this one, and it's also the shortest way to our home. This is where I first stopped. I was the one driving. Ramsey was the one on the co-driver's seat, and they were together with Emmanuel Omondi. So I dropped them here and I made a U-turn. I didn't enter into the compound. This is my father's home. This is where I used to stay, or I stay. So I made a U-turn and I told them I'll be back within an hour. This place is Huruma Kahoya Estate. After driving from my parents' house, I drove to this spot randomly. I came from this road. I made a U-turn. I looked around. I saw there was nobody around. I opened the boot. Before I drove the box out of the boot. I looked again. There was no one, so I just dragged it and placed it beside the fence. Then I closed the boot and I rushed. I drove off.
The autopsy reports conducted at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital revealed that Chiloba died as a result of asphyxia. Government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odor said the deceased was suffocated to death after his mouth and nose were stuffed with pieces from jeans and socks.
When you look at the fingernails, they were bluish in discoloration, an indication that he was lacking oxygen when he died.
I did this from my honesty, and I did this because he was my friend, and I don't want anyone out there to think that I had a motive of killing a person whom I knew for 2 years. No one has forced me to do this. I have not been denied any chance of freedom to do this.
The evidence in court indicated that Chiloba had been sexually assaulted before his death. The courts did not, however, make any finding about the motive for the killing. Samira Mohammed for TV 47, Nairobi.